First of all, a few caveats about this presentation. Everything I'm going to speak to you about today is based on the government's draft clean energy carbon price proposal. As I'm sure you're aware, it's getting a lot of media coverage at the moment. It's quite fraught and politicised. And before it becomes final legislation, if of course it does, it might change. So everything I say now, please bear in mind it's based on draft. I'm going to talk to you about a few different things today. First of all, a brief overview, which I'm sure you'll all be very familiar with, about the structure of the industry, and then have a look at exactly what the government is proposing, the elements that will impact upon textile and fashion, then have a look at potential price impacts, if there are any of course, and have a look at the government assistance programs that have already been announced. So firstly, the key point to note with the carbon price in terms of the textiles and fashion industry are that there are two main impacts. You might possibly be impacted by higher electricity costs as well as freight. Now, it depends completely on the structure of your own business. And one good piece of news I have to say is essentially the carbon price is not necessarily going to be a major impact on your industry. Existing competitive drivers like the high Australian dollar, the cost of raw materials and commodity prices remain definitely much more of a focus for you to consider. These graphs here, it's quite recent data from February 2011, IBIS World. Essentially, the top graph is looking at wholesaling and the bottom on manufacturing. The key point is that, as you can see here, utilities, which will include electricity, which will be the major driver of the carbon price, is a very small component of the manufacturing cost base. As you can see, the large grey bars are actually purchases. That's the purchases of raw materials to input into your business. That's in general, if you look at the industry as a whole, that's where most of the costs go, and the carbon price will not directly impact anything that is purchased there. And if you look down the bottom again about manufacturing, which is kind of the second largest cost driver in the manufacturing industry, labour won't be affected by the carbon price. So, what exactly does the government propose? This has been getting incredibly conflicted and often inaccurate media coverage. And one thing to bear in mind is essentially what the government is proposing now is exactly the same as what the former Liberal government under John Howard took to the 2007 election. This is not a new idea in Australia. Actually, the federal government has been researching this since about 1997. There are a few new features of the government's clean energy plan that was announced in July, and the main difference is there's now actually two different periods for the carbon price. Now, in the media, when Tony Abbott talks about the carbon tax, it's actually referring to the first 3 years. So from the 1st of July next year, the first of the new financial year, until 3 years later, 2015. Now, in this period, the price is actually going to be fixed. The price we have up here, $23 going up to $24.15 and $25.40. The idea of this is to give business certainty. Everybody knows exactly how much the large emitters in Australia, which are not part of the textiles and fashion industry, will be paying. Of course, after that, from the 1st of July 2015, if the legislation is passed, Australia will move to an emissions trading system. Now, this is very much what former Prime Minister John Howard proposed, what Kevin Rudd proposed, and the current Labor government as well. The difference between the two periods is in the first period the price is fixed and there's essentially no environmental benefit. Pollution could theoretically keep on rising. However, from the 1st of July 2015, the government will put a limit on emissions. There will be a pollution cap and the price will not be set. The price will be set by supply and demand. And that's the key difference. So from the 1st of July 2015, that's when Australia's emissions profile, will start to reduce. They will be capped, and essentially that's the point of the carbon price. So from the 1st of July 2014, the government has proposed to introduce a carbon price on large trucks. Any truck or commercial vehicle that's under 4.5 tonnes will be exempt, and like all personal passenger vehicles, will never feel the impact of a carbon price. So when you're forward planning and thinking about your own business, any kind of freight or delivery may actually increase costs from 2014. Now, because it gets such bad media coverage, I thought I'd just point out exactly what is a liable entity, what is one of the companies that will be directly paying the carbon price. It's the big polluters. It's energy generation, it's coal, it's gas, it's cement, it's steel. It's anything with a very, very high emissions intensity. There was a lot of angst in the media a little while ago when the number of companies dropped from 1,000 to 500. With very little explanation from the government and the media. Essentially what happened is the government excluded petrol, which means they excluded all of your cars and light commercial vehicles, as well as synthetic gases, which are now covered under different legislation. And that's the cause of the drop. All of the big emitters, the big polluters, are still covered. I've just put this slide in quickly to point out that although the carbon price is very politicised in Australia, with this proposal in the Clean Energy Package, the government has made an attempt to depoliticise future decisions about the carbon price. So it won't matter if there's a Liberal government or a Labor government. It will actually be, key decisions will be handed over to some independent bodies, two of which are new, the Clean Energy Regulator and the Climate Change Authority, and of course the existing Productivity Commission. So going forward, any key decisions that will be made won't be made by the government of the day. So key dates to note, the government is intending to release the final legislation that they will attempt to get passed in Parliament anytime from the 1st of September. Bear in mind that at present, with the support of the Greens and the three independents, this legislation has the numbers to pass by one. Of course, the Craig Thompson affair may derail everything here. But essentially, if it is passed from the 1st of July next year, there will be a carbon price in Australia. And then 3 years later, we will move to full emissions trading. There's been a lot of discussion about the price impact as it flows through the economy of the carbon price. Apologies here, the legend has been left off, but as you can see on the column on the left, in 2011, wholesale prices and household prices have been driving up the cost of electricity. On the right-hand side, you can see the red bar at the top. That's the government's projected impact of the carbon price from 2013. So while it's there and it will increase electricity prices a degree, it's certainly not one of the main drivers. The main drivers for electricity price increases are quite a substantial underinvestment in energy in southeastern Australia over the last 10 years. Also the renewable energy target and some other existing problems with the energy network. These are very much separate of the carbon price and will occur regardless of whether this legislation passes. So that's something to bear in mind when you think about your business or even your household. One thing that is clear is that to a degree the carbon price will be passed on through the economy. The point of an emissions trading scheme or a carbon tax is to change the price that end consumers pay, to change behaviour. Now that's the economic theory. In practice, in a competitive environment, that doesn't always work. So when you think about the carbon price, you have to think about carbon price pass-through. The obvious one is the energy generators will increase prices, therefore the cost of electricity will be higher. Then everybody who produces with electricity may very well raise the price of their own goods and services, and this will eventually pass along through the economy. One thing to note is that it totally depends. The impact on your business depends on the structure of your business. I will be here a little bit afterwards to address any specific questions that you may have. And if you're worried about carbon price through, a key point to note is the ACCC has actually been granted new powers and expanded powers to address any price gouging issues. So there is a mechanism built into the system for that. The government's modelling has projected a one-off increase in inflation and the CPI of 0.7%. So from the 1st of July next year, there's expected to be a small impact of fashion retail price increases. According to the Treasury modelling, there is not expected to be a large impact whatsoever, which is good news for the textiles and fashion industry. The government has essentially proposed a lot of assistance, more than $10 billion worth. $1.2 billion is the Clean Technology Program. Companies within the textiles and fashion industry may be eligible for some of the programs and receive some of this funding. I have this graphic up here essentially to just to show you everything in blue on the left-hand side of the screen is actually the big, heavy industrial kind of cement and steel. Textiles and fashion actually sits around here, so energy intensive, but not in comparison to a coal-fired plant. So firstly, the Clean Technology Investment Program is worth about $800 and it's available for any manufacturing business. And the minimum grant size is $25,000. A key point to note is that it's matched funding, so you would need to raise $75,000 to receive $25,000 from the government. It's intended to help your firm invest in energy efficiency equipment or new materials that you may need for your business. The next one is the changes to the existing small business instant asset write-off. The threshold has increased. This provides tax benefits, and again, it's intended to assist with new energy efficiency purchases in your business. At the kind of industry level, the government has put together a program for green skilling. This is intended, again, just to make sure no employment slips through the cracks when the carbon price is introduced. I know the textiles and fashion industry has quite a few home workers. In terms of the electricity that may or may not be used at home, the government will actually there is household assistance in terms of electricity. This will come through the tax system. This will also be direct benefit payments. So households will not be affected. And also one thing to consider is this clean energy package actually has a large tax element reform that has been built into the program. And it will change the tax-free threshold, which may impact some workplaces. So, what should your business be doing in relation to a carbon price? First point, as I said before, is the impacts will depend very much on the structure of your business. However, there are a few key points that can be done. A key point that we at Balance think is important is recognising who your buyers are and who you sell to. Having a look at the supply chain and really understanding that if anyone that you deal with, any of your suppliers or buyers will be affected by the carbon price. And that's also a useful exercise to undertake in a competitive environment. Essentially, the carbon price is not going to impact directly on this industry. However, it provides a good opportunity for the industry to review operations and continue to look at competitive aspects. One thing I would definitely stress is take a look when the government releases further information about the assistance programs that are available. They certainly have a lot of money behind them. The full details of the package won't come out until the legislation is passed, but the money has already been put on the table. Again, depending on the structure of a business, freight may very well increase in cost, and that's something to keep in mind from 2014. There are also a number of things that the TFIA, etc. can do. Itself, there are funding for industry bodies. The first one is actually grants to industry associations to provide information on the carbon price and the clean energy package, and this would certainly be something for the TFIA to have a look at. Again, there's another form of grants, the Energy Efficiency Grant Program, to assist the TFIA help all its members increase energy efficiency. A final point to note is from the 1st of July next year, there is the facility for any individual company or organisation to go to the government and ask for a review of the impact of the carbon price on your organisation or industry. It's possible there'll be a long line there, but that is built into the system if anybody has further concerns once the carbon price has been introduced, although that can't be done beforehand. That's the end of my presentation, but I will be here for a little while till 2:30, and I'm very happy to take specific questions about the specific structure of your business.